Welcome back to the At Home with Roby show. I'm Ashley Davis, and along with Trent Haston, we're your hosts. We're glad you're spending your Sunday morning with us. Whether you're in the car or on the couch, you're always at home with Roby. Visit us today at andrewroby.com. That's Andrew, ROBY.com. Or you can click on the At Home with Roby tab at WBT.com. Trent, it's National Grandparents' Day. We hope everybody out there listening, every grandparent is having a great day. If you're thinking about how to spend your retirement, where you want to live, what you want to do, you don't want to miss this next conversation. We're joined now by our good friend, senior living expert, Wilson Worley. Wilson, thanks so much for being here, buddy.
Thank you, Ash.
All right, so Trent, I know you have known Wilson a long time. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Wilson.
Yeah, I earlier was talking about the first, basically, the first time, I'm not saying it's the first time we ever did senior construction was about 9 or 10 years ago. I met Wilson Worley. He was hired by Brookdale to manage a chunk of projects, and we interviewed, and it was strictly business. And me, as the representative of Andrew Roby, did these projects for Wilson, and it was all business. But over doing business together and how we treated each other both ways, and how we serviced him, and likewise how he serviced us, we became really, really good friends. And he is a great mentor of mine. I say this all the time. My dad was my number one mentor, and Wilson now is. I have two main mentors in my life, and one's Wilson, one's Randy Burris, owns Overhead Door, and we became golf buddies. And through that, when you start hanging out with somebody, you talk business, because we like to talk about and think about business. And Wilson kept looking at me and saying, "Man, if I was 20 years younger, we'd take over the world." And I kept looking back at him and saying, "Man, don't say stuff like that." And so now we're in business together, and we're partners, and we're really trying to tackle and take care of the senior living industry, and run a business in that endeavor. So thank you, Wilson, man. You mean the world to me.
Same to you, Trent. Appreciate you guys having me. I guess I'm the only grandfather in the room here today.
Well, happy Grandparents' Day.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to the presents you guys are going to present to me after this show today.
They're out in the lobby. When we get out there, we'll give them to you.
Yeah, I got to go.
He's got to run down to the drugstore. He'll go to CVS.
You know, it might be of interest to some of the listeners out there, that just a little bit of history of how retirement housing came about. You know, back before World War II, we had, families living together or near each other. Moms and dads took care of sons and daughters, and sons and daughters took care of moms and dads when hard times came on, whether it was illness or financial or whatever. And then we had, of course, World War II came along, and then after that, the GI Bill really changed the family dynamic, because a lot of guys had protected our freedoms, came back using the GI Bill. They were able to get an education that furthered their opportunities for job employments, and they were moving all over the country, away from the family compound, let's say. And so retirement housing started to change, come into play about that time. The religious organizations, primarily church-sponsored retirement communities, started happening in the 1950s, and that's where a lot of folks, when they needed assistance, where families weren't nearby anymore, they moved to the religious sponsored retirement communities. So we had that type of environment develop in the 50s, where someone who, you talked about CCRCs a moment ago, they really started with their church-sponsored retirement communities back in the 50s. Where folks could get the type of care or support services they needed to continue to live independently. Those services that prior to that had been furnished by other family members. So the 50s kind of kicked off what you might say the retirement industry as far as housing and support services. And then we had the Florida type developments, the retirement developments where the northern folks from up north moved south. We had a mass migration of people going to southern states for their retirement homes. And lo and behold, somewhere around the 70s, some of the more private development type companies said, hey, the church-sponsored communities have been developed in the past. We should look at that as well. And we had an inundation of retirement community development starting back in the 70s and went on even into today's time.
So, Wilson, you've obviously been around this for a long time, and with today's aging population, baby boomers getting older, what are you seeing? What's changed from the 50s to 70s to now? What types of housing is out there? What are people looking for when they're looking to retire and move into a community?
Aside from the continuing care retirement communities, we've used acronym CCRCs. Yep. Continuing care retirement communities providing the independent living type of housing, and then if someone, as they advanced in age, needed assisted living, they could get to the assisted living component of that community, and then even to skilled nursing if needed. Today, I'm finding, I'm 76 years of age, so I'm in that category of people, and really a little beyond, because usually people from 65 to 75 start thinking about, they're empty nesters now. The kids are gone, they're out of college, and they're thinking about what kind of lifestyle am I going to have? Where am I going to live where I can continue to support myself independently? And one thing I've learned working with retirees over the years, they don't want to depend on their children. Now, children are willing to help, but at the same time, they don't need mom and dad hanging on them all the time either. And I know people who are listening out there today on both sides of that spectrum are saying, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I don't want to live with my kids. My kids are not wanting me to live with them either. So I've got a plan for myself. Where am I going to live, whether I'm still, as a single mom or a single dad or a couple even. They're looking at, where do I go? So a lot of people are looking at what we're now calling age-restricted active adult housing communities. They're popping up all over the country. The local Charlotte area, I bet you I've looked at the internet, there's probably 10 to 15 or more of them in the last 5 years or 10 years have popped up here and around the Charlotte area. And normally that's where someone can occupy a smaller house, smaller yard, receive the kind of support services that will assist them in maintaining their house, maintaining their lawns. They can still stay active with their friends and other type of cultural activities.
It's a little more in depth than just downsizing. It's really changing your lifestyle to accommodate what you're experiencing as you're aging.
It is. People are buying lifestyle. They're not really buying the house.
Right.
They're buying a lifestyle. That's where my wife and I we've done the same thing. We downsized ourselves. We actually developed the little community that we live in Greenville, South Carolina. I actually said I was an expert a moment ago. I think everybody's an expert that's 25 miles from home. So that's me. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm 101 miles.
You are an expert.
What's great about these communities is people a lot of people say downsizing is not the right word. It's right sizing. They want to maintain the quality of life they had, and that's what these active adult communities that you've been so involved in afford them to be able to the opportunity to do that without all the maintenance that comes along with it.
We've been developing communities now since 1970. National Retirement Corporation, which is now, by the way, a subsidiary of the Andrew Roby Company and Andrew Roby Realty. Today we have, when I got into the business developing retirement housing, 5,000 people were turning age 65 every day.
Yeah.
Today it's 10,000 people.
Wow.
Turning 65 every day. So the boom is already happened, but that tsunami is still coming. We've got 46 million people in this country today over age 65. And just in the next 5 years, 2020, we're going to have 56 million people in this country over age 65. And there's going to be a greater demand then, as we grow here go through the next few years for more retirement.
And those are some big numbers. We're going to take a break here in a minute, but those are some big numbers. But when you say those numbers, it's more than just that number. It's the associated families with that and the stress that can come with that. When we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about what this process of right sizing means to not just the people that are getting older, but their families and how they deal with it.
Sure.
All right, Wilson, stay with us. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the At Home with Roby show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.